the station, its staff, management, or sponsors.
It's Monday night at 9 p.m. and time for Sex Talk with the Siegel brothers. Dr. Ricky Siegel is a certified sex therapist, educator, and supervisor, and his brother Larry Siegel is a clinical sexologist and certified sexuality educator. The Siegel brothers are here to answer all your questions about sex and sexuality, but we're unsure who to ask, including questions you didn't even know you had. They will also welcome guests from around the globe to talk about a wide variety of topics and issues within the fascinating world of sexuality. Thank you for joining us, and welcome to Sex Talk.
Good evening. It's Monday. That means it's time for Sex Talk with the Siegel brothers. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're listening on the radio in South Florida, we're on 95.3 FM and 1470 AM. We're also streaming live on Facebook. If you're watching us on Facebook, hello.
Hey.
Thank you so much for joining us. Please hit that like button and share while you're there in front of the screen.
And follow while you're at it.
My name is Ricky Siegel. I'm a certified sex therapist.
And I'm Larry Siegel, a clinical sexologist and certified sexuality educator.
And my awesome big brother.
Love it, love it.
Who I love doing this with every week.
You know, it doesn't matter how old we get. I still feel proud of you.
Aww, that's sweet. Appreciate it. I still say I started in this career by inheriting your old jobs.
Well, again, like the kind of characterization of going from hand-me-down clothes to hand-me-down jobs.
Yeah,
Makes sense. Especially through the hallowed halls of Planned Parenthood.
Indeed, and Mom smiling down.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed.
Yes.
And whether they're in those hallowed halls or not, if people wanted to get a hold of us, how might they do that?
Well, I am proud to be the director, along with brilliant West Palm Beach psychologist Dr. Rachel Needle in Modern Sex Therapy Institutes, where we train psychotherapists and medical professionals in sex therapy and sexuality counseling in multiple locations throughout the country. Awesome to have Larry on our faculty. And so I can be reached through the website, www.modernsextherapyinstitutes.com, or email me directly, ricky@modernsextherapy.com. Or you can give me a call. Freddie will put a carry-on up along the screen at some point with my cell phone number, 561-809-1080.
Well, I hope it's not a carry-on.
Isn't that what they call that thing?
Chiron.
Chiron. Carry-on is dead things on the side of the road, right?
A dead animal on the screen.
Well, speaking of, there's our segue.
Yeah.
Speaking of carrion and things rotting.
Well, but before we do, if anybody has any other kind of ideas, if you want to call up and join the discussion tonight, give us a call at 888-565-1470.
1470.
1470.
565-1470. Remember, you're supposed to do it like WNNN, like Howard Stern. 888-565-1470. Give us a call.
Yes, indeed.
Join
Or
the
you can also, if you're watching us on Facebook, you can sort of send us a message that way.
Yeah, hit that send email button, and we'll get it up on the screen. And please join the conversation. Mm-hmm. And please, I'll ask again to share. Our viewership and listenership is growing slowly but surely.
Yeah, thank you all so much.
We'd like your continued help and support, getting it out there, getting some numbers.
Continuing to grow the show. I want to take it to an hour.
That would be nice.
Certainly, get the sponsorships and the advertisers.
If anybody listening would like to sponsor, advertise on the show, or if you know somebody who thinks it would be a good fit, interesting dilemma. When we find ourselves, what if somebody wants to give us money to advertise something we
don't believe in?
Yeah. Or, what's that Tom Waits song? I'll be your late night evening prostitute.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? That's the, yeah. So, of course, it has to fit, but we'll find the right.
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
Right match. Indeed.
Sure. So, all right. So here we are. A week before Election Day.
And we've been saying it for way too many elections in succession to the point where it's just another hyperbolic thing, but it really is the truth that it's never been more important. Yeah. There's never been as much at stake, and people really need to vote.
And I want to kind of reiterate that point because it's an important one, because it really is why there's so much apathy. that sets in. Because, people are tired of hearing, every election, it's the most important election that's ever been.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to liken that to the temperature in the summers.
Yeah.
For the last 7 or 8 years, it's been the hottest summer on record, the hottest temperatures on record. And yes, no, but that's the point. Here they're saying that every year because every year it is getting worse than the previous year. And this year, when we're talking about each elections that have been the key, most important elections up until that point, where we are right now is truly, I think, a place we've never been to before. I've never seen a place like this before, where we are on the precipice of either being able to support or completely demolishing the very foundations that this country is based on.
Yeah.
And again, I know, talk about being hyperbolic, but that's what it feels like.
Yeah, either we're going to pull back from that edge or just it's going to be full steam ahead into who knows what kind of madness.
Yeah, and politics has become this creature that, again, just has grown out of control in terms of how messages are getting out there, what kind of messages, all about manipulation. That's really all it is. It's a whole another level of marketing. And I don't care if you're talking about a product or if you're talking about an ideology, it's about marketing. There's product marketing, but there's also social marketing. And political marketing is very much about that.
They used to call that propaganda.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Right?
When it's just the government doing it, it's propaganda.
But no, really.
But now everybody's doing it on behalf of.
There is a movement to demonize and vilify anything. Well, liberal's still a dirty word for a lot of the country.
Yeah, and again, people need to ask themselves when and why that happened.
Right. When it comes to sexual values, there's so many aspects of sexuality where it becomes, we talk about this often, sadly, that it truly becomes mental illness to think that there are debatable pros and cons to certain issues. Like some of the things we're going to talk about tonight. We have to rail and rave about how politics affects sexuality in real people's day-to-day lives.
Absolutely. It cannot be avoided.
To come down on, to say, well, it's a matter of opinion, and we have different views, and it's blue and it's red. But when one side of a debate is just irrational and insane, we can't have a rational discussion. Oh, hi, Rochelle. Love you.
Love you.
Right? We can't have a rational discussion. Like, okay, let's dive right in, shall we?
But it also comes, and again, just to sort of finish that thought, because part of why it's an impossible task to have a rational discussion is because you're often talking about empirically based evidence with personal arbitrary opinion. Right? I mean, who was it? Bill Maher, I think, a great segment that he does every once in a while that really does encapsulate that, I think, very, very well. It's like, well, it may not be true, but it feels true to me. And Stephen Colbert's truthiness.
Yes, his contribution to the lexicon.
And that's really what it's become. So you actually have
it's more important to feel
versus
true
feeling
than to be true.
Right.
Well, feeling has taken the precedent.
That's right.
But, okay, we wanted to focus on some political issues going on around the country where, again, the results of these midterm elections may dictate future elections down the road and the direction that we are moving in terms of this politicizing of sexuality to literally change the course of our what little progression we've had towards sexual health.
And this is where I see that foundational kind of stuff. What progress has been made over the last 40 years is now very, very much being threatened.
Yeah, but how long since we've been doing the show? We've been saying that in the 25, 30 years we've been involved in sex ed. What's really changed?
Well, but see, now,
right?
but there are
the
a lot of
progress
things
from 40, 50 years ago, but the last 25, Have we gotten better with comprehensive sex ed in schools in this country?
Better than it was.
We're still more. There's still more abstinence-only programs.
Well, sure.
Right.
Sure, but at least, again, I think there's more. And you're right. It's the yardstick is moving slowly, but we're at a point right now where I've read a bunch of things and been hearing a bunch of discussions over the last couple of weeks. And when we look at whether or not we are at a point of no return, if not past that, just like people are talking about that with climate change and some of these new reports, when we look at what the federal bench is now filled with, what this administration has already done and people he's already put into these lifetime appointments.
And all of the appellate court judges, don't forget about those.
That's what I'm talking about.
Focus on the Supreme Court.
No. The federal benches.
Judges.
The Supreme Court only hears a couple of cases a year.
Yeah.
Federal judges, lifetime appointments, are where precedent gets set. It's where the cases really get settled, and each federal judge sees hundreds of cases every year. That's the damage that may not be able to be undone. I think at this point we have to look at how do we mitigate it. So this election is not just about the issues on the ballot for people in their different locations. It's all about what is going to happen. How are we going to move forward? Are we going to continue to move in a positive, progressive direction where we're sort of getting more in touch with our humanity, or are we really going back to that more repressive, restrictive? People say, well, they want to bring us back to the to the 50s, but it's more like the 1650s, not the 1950s.
That's right.
Right? And I think it's really that's the point we're at when people talk about this culture war, this fight for the identity of this culture. I can't disagree with that. Do you want to be this smart, intelligent, loving, sharing space with other human beings who are sharing space with you, or do you want it to be this closed off, tribal, if you're not me, I hate you, you're my enemy, kind of thing? Right? And again, there is a reality that has nothing to do with anything that Trump has said in the past, but there are fringes on both ends that need to just be kind of let go. Right? Well, I think we're also in a place where we have to fight for the middle at this point.
Yeah. Well, the fringes used to be kind of naturally kept at bay. Both sides saw their own extremists as freaks and weirdos. Now one set of extreme weirdos are being empowered and given center stage and given a much bigger...
Absolutely.
Trump can go on about Antifa all he wants, but there's no equivalence
No, of course
to
not.
the hatred that's been let loose behind this rhetoric. And I don't care what
especially from
all the
far
talking
right.
heads are saying. I hold the president much more responsible.
Oh, of course. I mean, of course. You talk
Throwing
about
gasoline on fires for lunatics.
But he's not responsible for
people who
the
are
flames.
Not wrapped too tight to begin with. Right. Yeah, but
let me just say, here's something that people need to keep in mind when they are voting for somebody.
Yeah.
Again, even beyond the issue, are they binary thinkers or do they understand nuance? Right? Because again, there's danger in that binary thinking, especially when it comes to these politics. And do they have a specific agenda, or are they there to represent?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the first thing people have to get over is just the dirty tricks and everything, and being able to vote, right? With all, forget about the hysterical claims about voter fraud. There's orchestrated, effective methods of voter suppression going on all over the country.
Yes, absolutely, right? Especially against people of color.
Just like in 2000 with Bush and Gore, it has to be close enough to be stolen. Right? And the 537 votes in Palm Beach County should be remembered forever.
Right.
Because remember when we were teaching, saying if we had a couple buses to go around the 4 campuses to get enough slackers to put down the video game controller, could have had 537 votes.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
So this thing was fascinating.
Yeah, and I was going to say too that I think in a lot of ways,
there's enough voter disenfranchisement and voter repression in communities of color and low income communities. But this is in states that have these laws, like this guy in Georgia. And how is that legal that the Secretary of State is running his own election and setting rules about his own election that he's... Aside from that, right, this thing about IDs not matching if there's a period in the middle initial or not or whatever, this thing for transgender people is phenomenal. This is a wonderful resource.
Right.
Transform
the vote.
That's brilliant right there, right? Transform
the National Center for Transgender Equality Action Fund
offers a checklist to make sure that, if there's any problems with ID, that it's illegal for some poll worker to not let you vote if there's a mismatch, and you can print this out and bring it with you to the polling place and stick it in their face and say, read this. You can't
in fact, there's a
voting.
page. There's a page there for voters, and there's a page there for people that work in the voting places, in the polling places. So they're recommending that people print out a copy and bring it to them.
Information for poll workers and election officials. It says the voter you're talking to is transgender, meaning that their gender identity is different than the gender that was recorded on their birth certificate. Transgender people are sometimes unable to update their IDs to reflect their identity for a number of reasons. This is not illegal. As long as the relevant voter data, name and address, matches one of acceptable forms of ID, and bring tons of ID with you. If there's any question,
and bring utility bills. Very important. As many.
Please do not
pieces
be
as you can.
distracted by gender presentation when you are evaluating a voter's identity and eligibility to vote. You could just stick this in their face and say, "Shut up and give me my ballot."
Right. And there's also, they give you a number for the National Election Commission hotline in case there's any problems. So, I mean, there are resources out there. And that's another thing, too, that when we look at these narrow margins in a lot of the previous elections, if we look at just...
like the presidential one?
The GLBT populations alone, that could have swayed. Elections as well. So everybody's got out there to vote.
Yeah, let's talk about that one since...
all right, so now here's an issue.
I just remember Trump saying it like he was reading off the teleprompter, like it was the first time he'd ever seen those letters. I'm going to support our LGBTQ community.
Right.
Yeah, he was so sincere. So now, what's this federal?
Well,
now
this
he's
is something
trying
that
to
is going to be coming
transgender
out.
people out of existence.
Right. This is going to be coming out. The New York Times.
Sensical thing.
The New York Times got a memo that was going around the Department of Health and Human Services. Now, again, this is why we're voting beyond just this election and just the amendments on the ballot.
My God.
They want to redefine gender, and this is a quote from the memo. Sex means a person's status as male or female based on immutable biological traits identifiable by or before birth. The sex listed on a person's birth certificate as originally issued shall constitute definitive proof of a person's sex unless rebutted by reliable genetic evidence. And they're saying that they're using a standard that is based on, quote, a biological basis that is clear, grounded in science, objective, and administrable.
According to whom? So So how are they going to legally define intersex people?
They're not.
Or people born with an XXY chromosome configuration?
They're apparently not. Pick one.
Well?
Pick one, and that'll be your identity. But see, that's the whole point.
So when they're hanging the baby upside down, say, congratulations, it's what? Come here, look at this. Is this a boy or a girl? Then just close their eyes and pick.
Whatever they decide to put on your birth certificate, obviously, is what is immutable.
Immutable.
Yes.
That's a powerful word choice right there.
Absolutely. So again, this is part of our future. This is a consideration
before
that's
the end of the
seriously
year,
before
says,
Trump.
If adopted, the change would effectively roll back policies enacted by anything Obama did, they have to undo.
Which again, that's kind of
which
why.
updated the legal concept of sex in federal programs, including Title IX, to reflect an inclusive understanding of gender identity as determined. In other words, by saying rationally intelligent thinking people.
Right. Right.
If enacted, the change wouldn't impact state laws or services, like New York City's recently approved third gender option on birth certificates for trans adults. Another thing. This is another old dirty trick that goes way, way back. Not just after we vote for people, for legislative positions, for judicial positions, and then, nobody knows one judge from another.
Yeah, why are we voting for judges?
No
first
parties,
of all, why are we voting for judges?
But then there's the referenda.
Right.
Emphasis on duh.
Duh.
Because they're written in legalese. There's all these gimmicks. They're written in such a way that people don't understand if they're for it. They vote no.
Hold on. It's not just written in legalese. It is purposefully written in a vague and confusing way.
Yeah, so people don't know what they're voting for.
Right.
Or again, they
Right.
don't.
So
you
what
know.
feels like voting for something is actually voting against it.
Right.
And that's how, I mean, there have been lawsuits against
And before we look at
sponsors
the
of this
sexual
stuff.
ones, there's this other great trick of just attaching things.
Right.
Right? Attaching things onto other amendments. So it's like here, this for here in Florida.
Making people make a choice.
Ballot number 9 in Florida prohibits offshore oil and gas drilling.
Now, in and of itself, that's a big political issue, a big environmental issue.
And of course, every other state up and down the coast, but Trump doesn't want anything off the coast to ruin his view off of Mar-a-Lago.
That's all.
So, no windmills, no oil drilling, only in Florida.
Right.
But it also prohibits vaping, the same bill, in enclosed indoor workplaces.
Right. Now, what one has to do with the other?
If someone vapes and they don't want to vote they don't want to vote to make it illegal for them to vape, then they have to be in favor of offshore drilling.
Well, but and again, that's the position that they know they're putting people in. Chances are, a lot of environmentalists are vapors.
Everybody,
of
everybody's
one
going
thing or
to
another.
vote against offshore drill. Most people,
And they're going to vote against it, of
and
course.
then they'll vote against
but see,
their
now,
own interest.
are you going to vote your principle or your self-interest?
Right, there it is. So that's another of the many
Right,
dirty
and
tricks.
that is a dirty trick that they often play.
This is another mind-cramping thing. This is happening in Massachusetts, this question 3. I had to look it up twice to understand it
And
myself.
again, it's kind of made to be confusing.
This is a gender identity anti-discrimination. So everybody go, oh, I'm all for that. I wonder.
Right.
I'm in favor of
Right.
not discriminating against
But veto
gender
referendum.
identity anti-discrimination veto referendum. So they're voting on whether or not to veto a law that prohibits discrimination based on gender identity or sexual identity.
Right.
In other words, if you vote no on what sounds like, no, I'm against discrimination, you are voting to make it legal
to discriminate
against
Right.
transgender
So
people.
if people in Massachusetts vote yes, what they're voting to do is uphold legislation that's already in place that prohibits discrimination against people
So
based
if
on
anybody's
sexual and
listening in
gender identity.
Massachusetts, it is so upsetting. I'm so glad you're talking about this. Thank you, Erica. And yes, I know it's sometimes we feel like outrage is the only thing that keeps us motivated and sane enough, but it is upsetting, and we have to be. Everybody got to be woke. It's time for people to really take. I'm not even going to finish that sentence, but
Now, again, implications, right? Because they're going even just beyond these, not just what they're trying to get away with, but the things that are being snuck in behind our back anyway. Again, all this grand stuff and a lot of this big stuff, people don't realize how, and I've shared some Facebook stuff on this, how many of these tax bills for the ultra wealthy have been snuck in.
yeah.
Right? While we're, again, busy with the shiny objects and the media and the new
WMDs,
outrageous
the weapons of
stuff.
mass distraction.
But people need to understand right now, I think there are 19 state legislatures that have before them that they are considering or are about to consider what has often just been referred to as personhood amendments, where they're defining life as beginning as a zygote at conception. And a lot of the language, like in Arkansas, they have a big thing on the ballot going on right now where they're changing the language from viable fetus, right, which at least using the point of viability as a standard that was there even in Roe versus Wade.
Right.
Now they're changing all of that language from viable fetus to unborn child, which is defined
is a
as
fertilized
from
egg.
conception to birth.
Oh my God! There's
Now the danger that really presents that people don't realize, it's stunning. The implications for so much. First of all, medical treatments, and in spite of what a lot of them claim, that certain medical treatments and procedures will not be considered wrongful death. on a fetus, but they're going to arbitrarily draw those lines.
You know,
That's just one thing.
20 years ago, we would tell our undergraduates that you are the first generation to have total freedom and control over your fertility, and yet you're at risk of losing it.
That's right.
And it's
again,
happening.
these are the implications, because with the restrictions on abortion, and again, what goes under the radar, while everybody's snapping at that, what is going under the radar are more and more restrictions against contraception in terms of access, availability, and just being just legal, even where to buy them.
Yeah.
You know, you go to places like West Texas where there is maybe one place that people can get contraception. There's maybe one clinic that women can go to.
Wow.
And that's part of the danger.
Sneaking up.
Same-sex marriage. These people have vowed to overturn it, right? And replace all of those laws. Forget about trans rights, because we're not going to have trans people anymore if they have their
they'll
way.
be legislated out of existence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's sane.
Right.
That's sensical.
Right. And this go around. There's not that many things that directly affect sex. In Alabama, West Virginia, they have ballot measures about abortion and life beginning. It's another more personhood amendments. People need to vote against those.
Right.
And
course.
again, these
And,
eliminations of abortion
just a little
rights.
history, right? People think that Roe v. Wade in 1973 was a precedent. You can Google this if you don't take my word for it, but the original precedent for the concept of potential personhood is the Old Testament, right? So,
Right. And again,
Just saying.
And just in the last quick minute, that there's so much of this that really says disregard the status of the mother. It's all about this obsession with the fetus.
Of
Yet
course.
even in the biblical mandates, what's important is the health of the
health
mother.
of the mother.
Right.
We should end with good news. Oh, I hear the music already? That was quick. New Hampshire. Question 2. If approved, the measure would amend the state constitution to say an individual's right to live free from governmental intrusion in private or personal information is natural, essential,
Right.
and inherent,
Right.
including women's uteruses.
And it also
So-
includes your surfing and internet stuff.
Yes, right on.
Uh-huh.
The time goes too quickly, but thank you for
Yes.
joining us and viewing and listening, and
And continuing to share and like and follow.
we will
and
be here next Monday and every Monday at 9 o'clock for
Yes,
Sex
indeed.
Talk with the Siegel brothers.
Thank you all. Have a great night.
You've been listening to Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers. Join us every Monday night at 9 p.m. on WNN, 1470 AM and 95.3 FM. Or watch live streaming video at AMP2 TV Productions on Facebook, or look for the shows on YouTube. Thanks for tuning in, and we hope you'll join us again next week.
The opinions expressed on the preceding sponsored program were strictly those of its hosts, guests, and callers, and not necessarily